Danny, Michael, welcome. Geez, wonder what we're going to talk about this week.
It's been a fun week.
It's been a fun week for a lot of reasons. We like when there's a big story, but can I tell you something funny that happened this week?
Yeah.
You know how you like to know my missed calls or my calls that I get on a Sunday morning after my column?
Yeah.
Well, I had an interesting missed call from someone I hadn't talked to for a little while.
Mm.
Oh, Bentio.
Why does he have to? Like,
I'm just guessing. This is a game.
mate, can we buy you a clown hat?
No, because
Can we just buy you a clown hat?
honestly, I thought it was the game. I had to guess who it was.
One's with a funny little jester.
Yeah.
I thought we were guessing.
Can you do some backflips and handstands?
A propeller on the
You're
top.
bagging Cherry now.
Anyway, had a missed call. Hadn't heard from this guy for a while.
Yeah.
Rang him back. Jamie Soward.
The great Sowie.
Great Soward.
He loves this podcast.
Well, it turns out he does love this podcast. And he said the reason I had a missed call was because he was listening to the podcast on his way home from somewhere, Footy or something. I don't know where it was. And he said his phone automatically dialed my number when because Chammy was giving to me last week about how his phone calls me Danny Weidler.
Siri, Siri calls you Danny Weidler.
So
yeah.
when you said that, his phone dialed me.
No.
So shout out to the great Sowie. Sorry,
So we've got one listener.
one listener. Sowie.
How many people should have been able to call you if that?
Well, hopefully.
Hey Siri, call Danny Weidler.
So that's going to happen again for somebody now.
Didn't happen to me. It's great.
Doesn't recognise your voice. So yeah, that was Sowie. Shout out to the great Sowie. He's a listener. And hopefully you don't call me again because of Chammy.
So, do you want to make a comeback and play for Manly at halfback next year? Because it sounds like we need one. I'm dressed. The only thing I'm missing today is a black armband to wear on my black t-shirt and black hat.
Are you gutted?
I'm gutted at the way that it's all panned out in the last 72 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Not gutted, but just like why? Why and how did it come to this? I'm actually not gutted that he's perhaps going to move on, because if he wants to move on and get more out of his career elsewhere, so be it. It might mean a little bit of short-term pain in the next couple of years with the team, because it's very hard to find a team facilitator like that. But in terms of how the club and maybe player, we don't know the full story, we don't know the full background, because there's still that thing hanging in the air of why he's decided to press the go button right now on this, the way he has. After Sunday night, he sat there to Brent Reid in a press conference and said, we're all on the same page and have been since December.
Well, I don't think Cherry was. I don't think he was lying. Manly knew that. I even wrote it in my column on Sunday that Manly came into this year with the view that Cherry was retiring, so that they had that idea as the same page. But clearly, Cherry has a desire to keep playing. Manly had no desire, in a nutshell, to make him an offer, and they didn't. There was no offer until there was some sort of.
But Manly assumed he would retire. That was never told to them that he was going to retire.
That was their view. That was their view. He was.
That was
their
retire. Assumption, not because that was what Cherry-Evans said to them.
They came into this year thinking he was going to retire. Simple as that.
Okay.
And I get the feeling, listening to everything that Tony Mestroffer says, because he's done the rounds, he did it on here on Triple M Daily yesterday with Dobbo and the boys, that he thought, let's wait a couple of days, see what shape he comes back in. Obviously, he's always going to be in great shape, but see what effect he's going to have on games still, and we'll pull the trigger eventually.
All of that.
They got jumped by
Daly's
the
narrative.
crew.
That's all the narrative, right? For me, there's a broader story here and a bigger story here, and I think it's quite simple. Manly didn't want Cherry. I think they didn't want him.
There's degrees of wanting.
I don't think they wanted him.
They didn't pine for
You sound
him.
like my wife now.
Well, I can see why.
Listen, let's go through this in chronological order.
You like to be ordered, don't you?
I like the order because I think there's a lot of misrepresentation of the truth.
Spin.
A lot of spin.
I want the
happening at the
timeline
moment.
as a Manly
Okay,
fan. And I rang you about this yesterday. I said,
I'll give you the
can you
timeline.
give us the timeline? I said, save for the podcast. So here we go.
So last year, as they approached November 1, which is when Cherry-Evans would become a free agent, there were no formal offers made from Manly for Cherry-Evans, right? What happened was, as November 1 came closer, Cherry-Evans said, well, if there's no formal offer, I'm going to test myself in the open market. Now, he tested himself in the open market specifically to a couple of clubs that he thought he could play for. This wasn't go out there and see who wants me. It was, I would like to play for these clubs if I was to leave Manly. management, can you go and suss it out? Manly at the time had indicated that there might be a 1-year deal, but when he said that he was going to go test the market, their response was, well, yeah, we have last rights. Go test the market. See what you get and come back to us.
Did they have last rights contractually, or that's just the assumption they were under?
Well, they do have last rights contractually because under the NRL rules, if you sign for another club, the incumbent club has 10 days to counter offer.
Yeah, okay.
But like, seriously, we're going to use that's what they're going to do to a 15-year player, use the old cooling off period to try and convince him rather than give him an offer.
Says to me, Chammy, they didn't want him.
Or, didn't want him and thought no one else would want him either because of his age.
Well, if they actually thought no one else would not want him, that's crazy talk.
So
because
when they've...
You know as well as I do how well he's playing, how well he looks after himself, and how few top level, and we're putting him in the top level, halfbacks around the comp. We talk about it endlessly, don't we?
But it is madness to think that the right strategy is to tell your best player, go out there, have a look what's around, and come back to us. And if no one makes you an offer, we're not interested.
What was the analogy you
Imagine
used
me.
with me?
Imagine me going to my wife saying, "Listen, we've been together 15 years. I'm not sure if I want to be together. Can you go out and go clubbing for a few nights? And if you find the husband, you know what? I'll take you back." Honestly, it's madness.
It doesn't make sense.
That does happen, by the way. Keys in the bowl. Anyway, carry on.
Maybe in the northern
Whatever
beaches.
floats your boat out your way.
Beaches.
It's a northern beaches thing. Clearly, it's a northern beaches thing.
No, it's actually an eastern suburbs thing because Fletch told me about it. But anyway.
Yeah, but it says to me that I just don't think there was a love there for Cherry. I don't think Manly wanted him. I don't know whether there's been a falling out at some level.
So can I ask you, why is Tony Mestrov, as the CEO, not involved in negotiations? Because it's been handled by Peter Gentle and Cherry-Evans management.
I think he took himself out of those negotiations.
For what reason? That's what I'm asking.
I don't know.
But that's the way the club structures their negotiation tactics.
Maybe that's his job. Maybe that's Gentle's job.
That's the flow chart at that club.
But this isn't a 19-year-old player. This is the guy who's your longest serving player.
All right. So what are you getting at?
I'm saying why wasn't he involved? I think there was some tension between the Cherry-Evans and Mestrov that led to this.
Fold it back. When Cherry-Evans put himself out there, what happened after that? Was there interest or did he get crickets?
No, he spoke to clubs, but no one was willing to make him a formal offer, right? So he's gone back to Manly and said that, and Manly have said, well, if no one's willing to make you a formal offer, we don't want to do so either. Then what happens is Cherry-Evans' manager has a meeting with Peter Gentle in December. At that meeting, Cherry-Evans...
Football manager, Peter Gentle.
Peter Gentle is the football manager. Yeah. Cherry-Evans phones in at that meeting and informs the club that 2025 will be his last season at Manly. And he's open to his future. He may retire, he may play on, doesn't want to make that decision just yet, but it won't be at Manly. So clearly in that period of the 3 months that had gone on, Cherry-Evans feels this club doesn't want me. I still may want to play. I'm not going to burden the club into putting them in a situation where they're going to have to pay for me if they don't want me. They're already making contingency plans to bring Lehigh Hopewadi into fullback and Tommy to 6. Okay, I'm going to swallow my pride and let Manly know I'll move on, make it easier for everyone. Clearly, he felt disrespected or whatever it may be. He's not going to admit that because he doesn't want to leave.
Those words have never come out of his mouth.
They're not going to come out of his mouth.
I know. I've had public conversations, private conversations, and he has never said to me he's felt disrespected. But I can see exactly where you're coming from. And anybody who's reading between the lines, as I said before, the love for him wasn't there.
To the point where he's never asked for a 2-year deal. And this is where I think it got ugly in the last few weeks because there's been a narrative in News Corp that Cherry-Evans and you know, love Buzz, no issue with Buzz at all, but Buzz has been on 360.
I don't love him.
You don't love him, no, that's for sure. He's been on 360 Neutral. And saying that Cherry-Evans is pushing a 2-year deal. Cherry-Evans never asked for a 2-year deal.
Yeah, that's fact. Never asked.
And Evan, I spoke to Tony Mestrov on Monday night. He admitted to me that he's never asked for a 2-year deal.
No.
So where does this narrative come from? And Cherry-Evans is sitting back over the first couple of weeks of the season.
That narrative has been created by somebody in the game to make him look greedy.
So if I'm Cherry-Evans, and I don't know because he hasn't said this to me, but if I'm Cherry-Evans, I'm thinking, are Manly trying to spin this narrative against me?
I'd be paranoid too because he's had issues in the past.
Correct.
And I'd be paranoid thinking...
It's exactly what's happened.
Of course it has.
All the Manly mates I've got is like, why is he doing this? Like what? But
somebody spun that to work against Cherry.
Yeah.
I'll just fold it back quickly before we get on to my thoughts on how Manly structures itself, because this is like Des Hasler leaves the club after winning a grand final Mark II, as far as I can see. Just like the management practices and how the club ownership is structured, it plays a part here. However, why wouldn't, as a negotiation tactic or whatever it is, if Cherry wanted to had feelings towards Manly still that he wanted to stay, why wouldn't he just say, or his management say, make him an offer?
They did. And they said they don't want to make an offer.
And then he accepted that.
And then he said,
when was that again?
That was in November, December last year.
November, December.
So when he tested the market and he came back and said, I haven't got a formal offer from other clubs.
Make me an offer.
And yeah, do you have an offer? Manly's answer was no.
Correct.
We don't have an offer.
And
there were indications there might be a 1 year deal there. There was never a deal put forward to him. And then they decided, when other clubs weren't interested, that they wouldn't make him an offer.
And Chammy, to set the record straight, there's been again people saying it, that there was an offer on the Monday when he went on to 100% footy to make his announcement and say what he wanted to say. There's been suggestions that on that day he was made an offer by Manly at midday.
Not true.
Did not happen. It absolutely did not happen. There was no offer put to Cherry-Evans or his management until there was that weird situation on 360 where all of a sudden there's Tony Mestroff is ringing an executive at Fox Sports to say, we're going to make him a 2-year offer. Up until then, nothing. Crickets.
So Tony Mestroff said yesterday on NRL Daily that basically he came to an understanding with Cherry-Evans' management that there would be an offer forthcoming, and then they formalised that on Tuesday morning after everything played.
No,
just back to the timeline.
No.
When did Cherry say that he was going to go on 100% footy?
Okay, I'll explain to you exactly what happened. So at the start of the season, at round 1, a submission from Channel 9 was put into Manly, a formal submission to Manly to get Cherry-Evans on the show. I have a relationship. I went directly to management and said, can we get Cherry-Evans on the show? This is before round 1, or after round 1, actually. They commit to coming on the show, to the point where Cherry-Evans, if you watch Channel 9 over the weekend, it was promoted in the coverage on the games over the weekend that he would be on 100% footy. Danny and I were none the wiser that he was going to drop the bombshell that he did. The only...
We learnt during the day that
because Cherry-Evans had told people at Manly that he was going to announce it. He told Anthony Seibold and Peter Gentle that he was going to make public what he told the club privately in December, which was, I am going to be leaving Manly at the end of the year. He told the Trebojevic brothers, I think they were having a recovery session at Freshie Beach. Is that what you call it? You kids in Manly, Freshie?
Yeah, nice
Freshie
place.
Beach?
Yeah.
And he told them that he was going to announce it on the night.
But
we learnt that
during
late
the day,
in the afternoon.
We learnt what was going to happen.
And that's why you broke it at 6 o'clock.
That's why we were able to break it at 6 o'clock, and you were able to go online with your story at the same time. But when I woke up on Monday morning, I had no idea that would be what was going on. There wasn't there are a lot of people who think that, and I've had a lot of people ring me to say that, this was some big plan to put him on the show. You knew what was going to happen.
No, he was already on there. What happened, you made the point at the start about Reedy's questions in the press conference. I think Daly's come out of that press conference having to answer those questions and realised this is going to keep happening.
So he woke up Monday morning and thought...
you know what, I am on 100% footy tonight. I know, the club knows that I'm not going to be there. Let's stop the charade. Everyone's starting to knife each other in the background and saying he wants 2 years, change the narrative. Let's put it to bed. And he decided that was the right platform to do it. Now, it's upset the other side because it wasn't on their program. They looked a little bit like they were scrambling for the news because the story actually broke, not on purpose, in the middle of 360 because Danny did his live cross at 6:40 and I agreed to go at the same time with the story. And then they were left scrambling on the show to try and find out what happened. And then the publicity stunt of having Penn, Mestroff, whoever it was, call 360 and offer a contract to Cherry-Evans on air without telling Cherry-Evans or his manager.
That is pure amateur hour.
Trying to save face.
That is
But it may have worked, Danny, because you said your mate's in a pub. You all think that, what's Cherry-Evans doing?
We go to the pub. We go to cafes.
Sorry.
Okay, but does it work with managers? Does it work with other players?
People in the game can see through what's happening.
Does it give Manly credibility? No. It doesn't. I think it damages their credibility.
And I think we've been down this path before, and I've got no issue with Tony Mestroff. I really like Tony Mestroff. But the manipulation...
What's he going to say now, but?
No. But when the Desi thing unfolded, right? Tony Mestroff had just started. You remember the circus around that and the information
sure
that was
I
going around. One person's opinion was different. This has happened before at Manly. And I think the go-to, and I read a lot of Dean Ritchie's stuff yesterday and saw him on 360, is to try and spin the narrative to make Manly look like they didn't stuff this up, which I would do too if I was at Manly. Because the reality is everyone's looking back and saying, how do you let the third or fourth best halfback in the comp walk away from your club after 15 years without an offer? Forget the 2-year deal at 1.4 million. That was just a publicity.
That was face saving, wasn't it?
That's right.
Or trying
So
to.
with Manly, I've done some journalism in the past 24 hours about how that like it keeps on happening. And again, I'll reiterate, it feels like when Des did his lap of honour at Manly and then all of a sudden he was out of there a few days later in 2011 when he ended up at the Bulldogs and gave them a bit of success over the next couple of years. But like how it spun out of control that from the top down and these conflicting stories. And you look at how the club is structured. So you've got 3 entities involved with the running of the Seagulls, mainly spearheaded by the Penn family and Scott Penn at the head of that, and the fantastic initiative he came up with government funding to name the Performance Centre after himself. Name it after a player, seriously. Anyway, he did tip in money, but as the owner, but he only goes to, I've been told, a handful of games a year. He tips money in, he's the owner, so fair enough. He gets to have the say. But there's the football club involved, which is a lot of the long-standing people who have been involved in the game on the Northern Beaches. There's the Leagues Club element as well. But Scott Penn and his family control that club. And because Scott is like with business interests in America a lot, he's got people who are his foot soldiers with the club and they control how things are going. To me, this whole saga about how it's points a huge spotlight on how the club is structured and how the management can operate under that structure. And to me, this doesn't happen at good clubs. This doesn't happen at a Melbourne. This doesn't happen at a Penrith. This doesn't happen at a Roosters, even though they had this situation with
why did it
David
have to?
Fafita last year.
Do you know what Manly should have done before it became public? Like, Daly Cherry-Evans went to them on his management went to the club on Monday afternoon, a couple of hours before our story even broke, and informed them that he was going on 100% footy.
So it's not to blindside them.
Not to they're going on about being blindsided.
That's just not right.
He spoke to Seibold, spoke to Gentle, spoke to the Trebojevic brothers. That's been the operation. Like, Gentle's been the one negotiating. They're saying, why wouldn't he have rung Penn and Mestrov? Well, they haven't been in negotiation.
Mestrov has not been a part. He took himself out of them, or he was taken out of them.
And I know that Tony Mestrov was made aware of the fact that he was going on air. So why wait?
say what he was going to say?
Yes. So why wait until after it comes out to go on 360 and then make that offer? Why not ring Joe Weeby or Jonathan Weeby? Joe Weeby's not even accredited. He owns the business. Jonathan Weeby's the one who's the agent who's been representing Cherry-Evans in all these meetings. Why not ring Jonathan?
Yeah.
Why not ring Cherry and say, mate, I think this is a disaster. Yeah. Let's try and work something out. Because in reality, I did hear that after round 1, Manly had sat back as a club and thought, you know what? We need Cherry-Evans to play on. We've just seen what's happened with Dylan Brown, 13 million over 10 years. He's playing great footy, was great against the Cowboys in round 1. We actually probably need this bloke to play on.
Chammy, you know what?
I think they were in the process of doing that.
I think everything you said is spot on, right? But I don't know if it would have made a difference.
It wouldn't have made a difference.
I think that Daly has made up his mind. I think something has really ticked him off.
Yeah.
I don't think I haven't heard this from him, but I just don't think he thought it was workable anymore.
I don't think it would have made a difference at all.
Not one bit.
But I'm saying to you, if it's not a publicity stunt, if Manly are going to come back and say this wasn't a publicity stunt, then why didn't you do it before it came public? You had 2-3 hours to make that known to Daly Cherry-Evans and his management.
They didn't want him there. I don't think they wanted him there. And
this is the point I'm making.
So you're saying you'll go and take it back about 43 steps. You were saying that you think there's some agitation between Cherry and Mestrov.
And I'm saying that the politics over the last few weeks has all been just that, posturing. And the charade had to stop, and Cherry-Evans thought, you know what, I'm going to take the first step. Let's nip it in the bud. I want to win a premiership before I leave.
Last one with Cherry-Evans and
Well, you don't want to talk about this for an hour?
No. The Manly, I want to know where he's possibly going to go. But from a Manly perspective, he's done it once, but is Daly Cherry-Evans going to get on the trampoline and go in a backward direction?
It won't happen.
In a somersault?
It won't happen.
I've had chats with him on and off camera. I don't think that's happening, mate. I think that time is done. I think his time at Manly is done. He may return one day as a coach if people are in different positions in management.
Mate, if he plays at another club, Manly will pull that. There's no way.
Oh, no, you never know. I'm talking years down the track.
Oh, years down the track. But I'm saying they're not going to be giving him a job for life.
No.
If he signs somewhere else.
No.
But he may backflip on the backflip. Maybe he ends up with the Gold Coast Titans. Wouldn't that be a story?
What a narrative.
Well, Des is speaking to the media today. So
is he?
Yeah. I'm interested to hear
can't
what he has to say.
Frame a market for us
You're not a punter,
in terms of
Chammy,
likelihood.
I honestly believe there is no deal done. People are saying there's a handshake deal somewhere. He knows where he's going. I honestly believe he doesn't.
Until this morning, I felt like a deal may have been done.
Yeah.
But I now think a deal has not been done.
I don't think it has.
No, I agree
And
with you.
if you're asking me where he'll end up, everyone thinks there's a deal done with the Roosters.
Yeah.
Do I think the Roosters are the favourites? I don't think it's done. I think he's got to work out what his motivation is. I don't think it's money, but if it is money, he goes to the highest bidder. If it's lifestyle and wants to go back to Queensland, well, it's the Titans or Dolphins.
Yeah.
If it's winning a premiership and staying in Sydney, you could argue maybe the Roosters next year, Reece Robson. I know the connection there with his manager. They manage Reece Robson, Tedesco. Yeah, I can see that. But if I'm the Bulldogs, I'm going all in. I think they're a halfback away from winning a premiership, the Bulldogs. And I would take Cherry-Evans for 2 years in an absolute heartbeat.
Can they afford him?
Of course, they can afford him. Do they want him? I don't know. I haven't been able to get an answer that they definitely want him. But if I'm them, you're mad not to look at it. Absolutely mad not to look at it.
Yeah, if I'm Cherry-Evans, I'm going competition hunting at this stage of my career. I'm not worrying about money. I'm looking for a title. And I'm assessing where my best chance of a title is and who needs a halfback. Yeah.
The Bulldogs.
I think I don't know if they're going to make a play for him, but I would be shocked.
You have to be asking the question.
I'd be shocked if they didn't start having internal discussions about saying, do we want this bloke?
I'm hearing clubs are a bit hesitant because they think a deal might be done somewhere else.
Well, there's a theory out there that a deal's done with the Roosters.
I think Riccio reported yesterday the Dragons are out.
Dragons are out. I was just at Rabbitohs before the podcast. Wayne Bennett said Souths are not going to make a play, but he thinks he's a top 2 or 3 halfback in the comp still. And so,
What did Wayne think of the whole thing?
Wayne was watching everything unfold. I mean, despite the fact that no coaches read papers or watch show, he said he was watching it and he thought it was ludicrous.
Yeah.
He said it was. I can't remember his exact
It was
words.
brilliant to watch. To be honest,
he said He said the whole circus around it. He didn't use that word, but was madness. And he thinks that it's a bit embarrassing for the game and that we need a trade window. That's his view.
Do you think?
You guys don't want it?
No. Well, as long as we have speculation.
Livelihood this week.
Chammy'd have to take up knitting if that happened. that'd be a new hobby.
I think honestly, I think it's the best thing for the game to have a trade window.
But you don't want it.
Not for your job.
No, we ask me as a journo, do I want it? No, because we wanted to speculate all year round.
You thrive on negativity, innuendo.
You're saying it like it's a bad thing.
I'm just saying
negativity is not negative.
Negativity is your bread and butter.
We went through this last week.
Innuendo.
Is the NRL even looked at a trade window as a possibility?
Yeah, the RLPA are the roadblocks in this. So they don't want it to happen.
RLPA.
We'll get onto them a bit later. Can I just say, imagine if it was 2 weeks earlier, or imagine Newcastle hadn't made a play for Dylan Brown. I actually think there's merit in Newcastle. 2-year deal. If Dylan Brown hadn't signed there yet, 2 years, work with Kalen Ponga, Fletcher Sharp, help him.
Magic.
It would have been perfect for Newcastle.
Magic.
That ship has sailed, but yeah.
Yeah, you're living in an alternate universe again.
I always live in alternate universes.
Yeah.
What?
What a week. What a week.
You're upset, aren't you? I can tell you.
What else do you want to know?
I'm just befuddled. I'm with...
What is it? You're befuddled.
No.
What else?
Hello Sport. The Hello Sport guys did... I was following the whole thing like you guys. Tommy Birmingham, who's a big Manly fan, like with Don Eduardo, his partner in crime there at Hello Sport, he came up with the most succinct way of putting up, like trying to explain it on Monday night. He put up a little thing of himself just looking into camera with the headline behind him after the offer from Manly on 360, and he goes... What the fuck is going on?
Whoa. Can you say that on this thing?
Just got beep.
Oh, okay.
Curtis is all over it, producer. Thumbs up.
We're not
Thank you.
live, are we?
Like, that pretty much sums it up.
To be honest, Danny and I didn't really believe it either. We didn't think that was the outcome of... Because we'd heard whispers that something was brewing, and then we made the calls that afternoon, and we managed to get confirmation that he had informed people that he was
like,
indeed...
holy moly, this is a pretty big story.
Yeah, but then it became, like, absurd.
Like Wayne said, ludicrous.
I was just filthy because
Wayne.
I'd given up 100% footy that week. I was supposed to be on and had organised Cherry-Evans to come on, but I had a touch football semi-final, so I switched shifts with Danny And he was on the night and I missed out. But we did win Wesdo 4-2 victors, moved through to the preliminary final.
Mate,
But
I offered my share on the show. I said you can.
no, top dog gets top seat. We know that.
Gus.
Sitting next to the computer.
Gus.
No, Cameron Smith.
Gus was very quiet when Cherry was talking about everything. He was just looking at him, wasn't he?
Yeah, and
And then he handed a piece of paper to him and said,
he also stormed off the set a couple of times. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
And one point, Cherry was sitting on the couch waiting because he was going to do an interview with me for 9 years later. And Gus stormed off, and I did see them having a very cozy conversation on the couch. So
I would love to have been a fly on the wall
I was
there.
going to take a photo.
Do you reckon his mic was still on? If I get the producer to go back and listen to what Gus said to him
Well,
off air.
if you were that sneaky, I would say that his mic would have still been
you're
on.
my mentor, so yes.
I got a funny feeling that I'm going to see a grainy photo of the Canterbury Leagues Chinese restaurant in the next month with those two sitting there. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have thought until today that the Roosters had done some sort of deal already, but I just don't think that's happened.
Market value. Really, you love your market value, GM Chammy. Last one on this. DCE. What's he worth in 2026? Market value in the NRL now that he's a free agent.
It'll be 800 plus. Yeah.
So it's not in the top paid guys of the 1.2s, Nathan
I think he
Cleary's?
could get a mil. It depends on how many clubs. If clubs believe there's a genuine chance to sign him, I think he could get a mil. But I think the minimum will be 800,000.
But even that Manly offer, which the PR offer they made, that was low as well.
It was 700,000. It wasn't 1.5 over 2.
Nah.
It was 1.4 over 2.
That's not right up there with what he probably can earn.
No.
Does he care about legacy?
I asked him that actually on the news yesterday, and he said that he knows it could impact him, but it's not up to him to judge that. It's up to other people, and he can't control that.
Did it affect Cooper Cronk's legacy? He won 2 comps on his way out. It didn't.
No, but that was a beautiful love story with
it
Tara.
actually
That was a love story.
It actually enhanced his legacy.
Made him more of a legend.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, you did it outside the Melbourne Storm system.
Twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't enhance his legacy for a time there with Cam Smith, we're led to believe, but
Yeah,
these things happen.
that's true.
Be careful. Danny's just starting to make peace with Cam. We don't want to ruin it, okay?
Oh, good. Trigger point over there. Crack becomes a chasm. Quick break on the Journos edition. Back in a sec. Coaches and press conferences. Are they being gagged? And Chammy really wants to talk about the RLPA. Guys, coaches and press conferences. So it felt like Ricky Stewart was going to wherever the line is on the weekend. And not that he was testing. He knew he couldn't go too hard. And that was Ricky Light in a press conference in a game that he was disappointed of. Obviously, the end result was the end result. But the little things in that first half sent him that way.
Yep.
In a wider sense, and you reported on this on 100% Footy the other night, are they a little annoyed that they can't, because I have a take on this, but I'll let you go first about what they can and can't say about refs.
I know where your take's going to be because I've been following you on radio and social media and all sorts of things. But I'll just say first that I rang about half a dozen of the top coaches in the game just for an off-record sort of chat. And there's a feeling that they need to be able to point out things that they want to talk about in those post-match press conferences. Not defame referees, not criticise them in that sense, but to say they need explanation on things and they want to make it public. And they're saying, well, if we can't do that, what's the point of the post-match press conference? Like if we're gagged to that extent, which they are, why are we sitting there? Because we can't really give people what our true indication of what happened in the game or feelings we have about what major incidents were. And I get that.
I empathise with them when they're asked a question about the officiating and what are they meant to do?
Yeah, we're going to get these ridiculous answers again and again. Oh, well, just go speak to Andrew Abdo or I'll go speak to whoever. Like, it's going to be the same rubbish every week when I want to hear what the coaches have to say. They're the smartest people in the game, aren't they? A lot of them. So
they can. Why can't they say that was a bad call? Why?
Because they're not allowed to do anything.
Yeah, but why? Like,
because
why? I get it. They're not allowed to turn around and say that guy's a cheat. He got paid to make that call.
I don't know why.
I get that. But if he turns around and says that shouldn't have been a sin bin, in my opinion, that's not a sin bin, or in my opinion, that's not a penalty.
I think that's fair comment.
That's fine. But if you're questioning the integrity of the referee, saying, mate, he looks after that team every time. We've played them 12 times. They've beaten them 10. You know,
that happens once in 3 years, doesn't it? When a coach
fine them,
fine them. I agree. That's what
to stop them commenting on match issues.
It's wrong.
Too much. They've even gagged poor old Graham Annesley. They cancelled his Monday briefing because he was bagging the referees,
Well, that was, but
saying they got things wrong.
I'd rather those conversations happen behind
joke, by
closed
the way.
doors with Annesley and the NRL. And like, I've had it, you hear it all the time. Oh, the refs should maybe do interviews after games. The only time a referee would do an interview is when there's a possible thing that's going to make his decision or her decision.
Yeah,
look bad.
Mr. Negative doesn't want to say what a great game the ref has.
Like, do you reckon Adam G, like they'd get Adam G up after the 23 grand final and say, Adam, tell us about your performance.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
No,
on those
I
decisions
actually
were
don't think the
magnificent."
referees should speak.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
they
with that as well. My take is that you've got to be so careful with the language. And I know that people like Ricky get really emotional, and that's fair enough because that's him. You're not going to change his personality. I've seen things happen in the last couple of weeks at junior sport, in the sport of football, but it happens in rugby league, it happens in AFL, it happens in sports where there are decisions to be made based on contact and 50-50 decisions which go against. Some of the decisions which are protested by coaches, and it starts usually with the coach blowing up and then the crowd gets involved and then players on the heads go, it is out of control.
Yeah.
It is out of control.
The idiots ruin it for everyone.
Yeah,
mate.
there's
That's
a
the
lot of
problem,
lunatics
mate.
around.
You know, they're fining people. We had to get warned the other day. If you post scores of junior footy on social media, you get fined $1,500. The club gets fined. If you start posting scores or you can't keep try scorers anymore. You can't even write down the try scorers. You cannot keep scores anymore for the junior games. You cannot
So your
mention it
kids
on
play
social media.
Junior footy.
Yes.
How would you say the relationship is with the people in the crowd, the parents and the coaches, and the decisions that have been made by a 15-year-old kid trying to get going in this the art of refereeing?
Not that old, 15. No, that's pushing. I'm talking about 6, 7, 8. But mate, I'm lucky.
No.
Never,
Like the referees are that old, or is it parent ref? Is it?
But look, I haven't myself been involved in a situation where I've seen it, but I've heard about it, so I can understand why there is reluctance. But you're punishing everyone else. Like my greatest experiences playing footy, which I still remember, are playing in finals and being in a part of a team. They're now stopping you from being part of a team every year at the end of the year under the age of 9. You have to rotate your team. You can't have more than 3 players in that team stay together the year after.
That's another issue.
Because they're trying to stop super teams. But like, yes, I get what they're trying to do, stop the lunatics, but you're crueling everyone else of developing that mateship, of growing up together and playing together for years, and that bond. That's what makes it so special. That's
a spin-off of everything how you handled the development pathway. My point back to the correlation between what coaches say, it gets into the subconscious when all the narrative is about on a Monday morning, that decision, this decision, that decision. When you look at the stat sheet and you go, geez, there were 25 errors in that game.
Yeah.
And you put up the referee errors and there might be 5. And it's like, guys, just turn the temperature down because it does correlate with what's going on in the community on a weekly basis. And it is making it unnecessarily hard for young refs in whatever sport it is to stick with the game and stick with their craft. And you wonder why we get to the end of it and go,
I
geez, the refs
understand
are
exactly where you're coming from, but I still think coaches should be allowed to explain and ask for an
to
explanation.
a point.
The lunatics make me angry, man.
Yeah.
Why are we being punished for the losers out there?
Yeah.
If you can't, sorry, I'm getting angry.
Do you know why? It's because there's no licensing on breeding. If there was a licensing program that the humanity brought up around who was allowed to have kids, maybe we wouldn't have this issue. But
131873.
lunatics have kids, and they go to sport and hammer
I know,
people.
so I can understand the reasoning, but it frustrates me that you're crueling the majority because of the stupid minority.
I feel like I'm listening to 2GB.
Exactly. Let's check the ferries. The RLPA forcing the NRL's hand
Speaking of lunacy,
with what?
Here we go. Okay, Chammy.
Chammy off the long run.
no, I reported last week that, well, let me take a step back. I noticed last week when I went looking on the NRL signings tracker that all the player options that were once public had been removed from their
You
website.
live on that site.
I've got my own spreadsheet.
Forget
I've
about
got
all
my
this
own
other
spreadsheet.
weird stuff you look at, but that is where that
Mate,
is your happy place.
That is
isn't it?
GM Chammy's
That
happy
is-
place.
That is your place.
Shout out to my mate John Paul, who's really a big fan of GM Chammy. He wants to hear about some things this week. I was very
Who's he
disappointed.
shouting at?
My mate, he just says he likes GM Chammy. I'm going to start calling myself GM.
Oh, don't.
Can I go?
He's a self-appointed
That is enough for me.
that's the height of...
This could be our last podcast.
Well, mate, honestly, it's a good spreadsheet that I've started. Anyway, so it's been removed. It's been removed from the official website. So I started making calls. What's going on here? And I knew what had happened. Well, I had a feeling I knew what had happened. The RLPA got involved again. So So it turns out the RLPA negotiated in the collective bargaining agreement that player options would not be made public. So the fan who was enjoying this transparency has been robbed of transparency from their club and from the NRL because the RLPA's pursuit of power and relevance again has got in the way. How is it good? I understand they want to look after their players, but like this is not a normal industry. We are talking about their salaries anyway. We are talking about their options anyway. By not publicising how much they earn, you think we can't find out roughly how much they earn?
I think
player options are not going to become public?
I think you're right, Jamie.
So
I'd like to argue with you. A bigger issue for the RLPA, they should be more worried about why the Raiders are playing a 4:30 game in Townsville, for instance. I mean, like in the heat. Like that's a big.
But instead, they're going on social media, fighting back at fans on social media. Yes, they did.
What do you mean?
I think we need to slow down here. It actually makes it more transparent and fair because the club can no longer include player option years when they announce a signing or contract extension. And then someone replies, "Put your feet in the shoes of a player who has had their options publicly displayed. Then think about what it's like when they're constantly questioned as to whether they will take them up or not, and the criticisms if they don't." It's just
who's saying that?
The RLPA official Twitter.
But you're going to find out anyway if they have player
Exactly.
options.
It's madness. I have an issue with clubs, and the Tigers tried to pull this off. The Knights did it with Kalen Ponga. The Tigers did it with Jerome Luai. The Tigers announced Jerome Luai as a 5-year deal.
Correct.
It's a 2-year deal with a 3-year option. The Knights years ago announced Kalen Ponga was a 4-year deal. It was a 2-year deal with a 2-year option. So on the official website, if the RLPA want to crack down, which they are doing, by the way, it cannot be announced as that. It cannot be announced as a 5-year deal. Clubs can't try and save face by announcing a 5-year deal when it's only a 2-year deal.
So we're dipping into more mystery land, aren't we? Like it's just making...
Well, eventually it's going to come out.
Less transparency.
It took 8 months.
Yeah.
It took 8 months for Luai. We found out Luai had an option, but it's going to come out.
American sports are really transparent with their...
Everyone's transparent.
We don't hear about team selection, injuries, like they can hide all that. Now that can be hidden as well.
They try to protect their players. Okay, Dylan Brown. What's the argument? Dylan Brown, we wouldn't have found out. They announced it as an 8-9 year deal, Dylan Brown, Parramatta. Turns out there were 2 sets of options in that deal.
And first thing we ask when there's a deal is, what are the options?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the first thing we ask. And especially on a long-term deal. And we've had all the dramas with Dylan Brown's options as well, but in the old contract and the new contract. But yeah, it gets found out.
And you will find out because one side of the negotiation will want those options to be known.
Yeah.
i.e. the agent or the club.
That's right.
Not that hard to find out either.
No.
You would have liked my flight back from Vegas,
Why?
Chammy. I was about 3 seats away from Clint Newton. And when you're coming down the aisle and he probably didn't want to sit next to me. I probably didn't want to sit next to him. Not that I've got anything big against him.
Clearly you do.
Well, I probably wouldn't have liked 14 hours of him, particularly he had a very bad cough.
Did he?
No.
Coughing his head
Clint.
off. I felt sorry for the person who sit next to me. I was just wishing you were on that flight. So I would have loved you to get.
You know what?
Dream seat pairing.
It's not personal. It's just it irritates me. Like things like there was a club try.
It feels personal.
The players, right? For the media day. The media day they do it at the start of the year. They go to Fox and 9.
Yeah.
The players wanted to do it on their day off because it worked out well for them. They didn't want to have a longer day. RLPA intervened and stopped the players from going out and doing it on their day off because they're entitled to that day off. Like the player wants to go. Why do you have to just make yourself try and be
relevant?
Anyway, it's just trying to be relevant, and they're just trying to run the game, the RLPA, and it frustrates me.
I love your
the trade window. Let it happen. It's good for the game.
Big union man over here. I'm not talking rugby union.
Honestly,
the old Teamster.
We moved on.
Dylan Walker, quick one on him. He signed for Para. Where did this come from? Was this sudden?
There
was
actually talk last year that he was going to leave the Warriors on the same sort of grounds that he's left now. It came to nothing, but I think he was offered to a couple of clubs earlier, and now it's happened. Parramatta, good signing for Parramatta. I think he's a good signing, good player.
They need experienced bodies. They've got a very young,
good player
roster.
Well, it got me thinking, and I don't think there's anything. Dylan Brown.
I know where
GM Chammy's back. No, well. Think about Dylan Brown's predicament right now. He doesn't look like he's in a good place, poor old Dylan. I love Dylan, but it got me thinking.
Hang on. Whoa.
What?
Bring up that handbrake as quickly as you can.
What?
Stop the car, get out of the car, get back in and put it in reverse
What's
because
this guy talking about?
Dylan Brown just signed a 10-year deal for $13 million and you're saying he's not in a good place?
He's saying don't put violins out for him.
Well, I noticed I was doing sideline for Triple M on the weekend.
Yeah.
And no one spends more time and gives more time to the fans than Dylan Brown.
Yeah.
Win, lose or draw, he's the last man on there taking photos. Even the day he was booed, he was still taking photographs and autographs.
Brilliant.
But after the weekend, he walked straight to the shed, poor old Dylan. I think it's starting to get to him. And I think, he hasn't had a happy couple of weeks on the field, the pressure, the noise. I just wonder if there's a part of Parramatta or Dylan that thinks maybe it's best for everyone that you go to Newcastle early. Now, I've made some calls.
You can't drop this 3/4 of the way
Nothing's
through a
happening.
podcast.
Stop.
You can't suddenly say this. This is where we're 40 minutes in or whatever, and you
Nothing's
bring this
happening.
up.
Don't start speculating.
You bring this up.
Nothing
Don't
is
start
happening.
speculation. That's all you do. You're Mr. Speculation.
No, that's not my name. It's
Sorry,
GM
Mr.
Chammy.
Negative.
No, Mr. Speculation.
GM Chammy.
Mr.
If he was in
Speculation.
WWE, he'd run down that runway as Mr. Speculation.
Or Mr. Negative.
Just Specky. So,
I know what you're saying.
what am I saying, Danny?
You're trying to say get him there now.
No, I'm not saying get him. I'm not kicking him out of the club. See, he's so negative. What I'm saying is if it worked out well for Parramatta, that they think this season's a rebuild, it's a bit of a write-off, we're going to start experimenting.
How many games in are we?
We're 3 games in.
You want to
Two.
write it off?
I'm saying if it gets to that point, stop putting words in my mouth. If it gets to that point where Parramatta feel maybe it's best if Dylan goes, maybe Dylan feels that way. Could it possibly happen?
Hang on.
Just stop interrupting.
Are you talking with knowledge here?
I'm talking with a little bit of knowledge. Well, I had some phone calls today. Nothing is happening. But I'm saying if it gets to a point where it makes sense for Parramatta to let him go, could it happen? Newcastle don't have the salary cap space right now to make it happen. Could they move Brayley on to Canberra early? Spoken to Canberra, they can't make it happen. So that's not an
Are
option.
you trying to make it happen?
I'm seeing what's happening in the background.
Seeing what falls.
Leo Thompson to the Bulldogs. Could you move him on early? Well, he's only on 350 and they haven't got many middles, so it makes no sense to let him go early. Jackson Hastings on 750 plus. You could let him go early, but who's going to pay him a lot of money? It's not going to help you. So as it stands right now, Newcastle cannot make it happen.
Are they trying to make it happen,
No,
Jamie?
they're not trying to make it happen.
Okay, that's to get that
if
clear.
If it
Get that
happens,
clear.
if it leads to that before June 30, would they want it to happen? I think they would. But I don't think it could as it stands right now unless there's a lot of chess pieces to move around.
But these stranger things have happened.
Stranger things, because Hindy, I think, brought it up yesterday.
Yeah.
So stranger things have happened. Watch this space. Nothing's happening now, but could it happen? Maybe.
Chammy, clubs are watching it. There you go.
Could it happen at half-time of the Manly game?
Don't try and come over the top of me with some sort of definitive statement when
Clubs
you
are
tried
watching
to
it.
shit all over me for the last 3 minutes.
I'm just trying to get it out
No,
of you.
you're flopping.
I want to know.
You heard Hindy's name and you're flopping. Third man in.
I want to know if you're speaking with knowledge or just being, who do you call yourself?
GM Champ.
This is speculation.
Specky. Specky.
Mr. Speculation. That could stick.
Scuttlebutt.
That shouldn't be a column.
I'm over this podcast. I got to go. Can you hurry up and finish it?
We'll stop bringing things up out of nowhere.
Yeah, that wasn't on the sheet.
Because I don't want to give the clues away.
You saw Dylan and when Dylan...
Because you go on
Dylan
9
triggered
News
you.
tonight and you'll talk about it and just give
Wrong
things
Dylan.
away like you did the other night.
News about Bob Dylan?
Give
Far
things
out.
away. What, do my job.
Do you reckon Braith deserves 6% commission? By the way,
I'm not going near
if
Braith.
Cherry-Evans backflips, I reckon Braith and Astor, because he was the one who put the offer to Cherry. As a registered agent, he should get 6% commission. I'm all for it.
Stop. Your wheels are spinning.
Oh, my God.
Love you, bro.
Cherry-Evans and Dylan Brown up against each other this Sunday, Arvo at Brookvale Oval, 4 Points Park. Todd Payton, quick one on him. 0-3. Any murmurs? Hard to get murmurs out of North Queensland. If this was Sydney, there'd be murmurs everywhere.
only. Murmurs only. I'm not hearing anything solid. Just murmurs.
Okay.
Cham?
No mermaids.
Yeah.
The game that shapes the narrative next week.
I haven't
So
even looked at this.
You say it every week.
I've chimed in.
When I can barely read. I didn't wear my glasses.
Well, I've chimed in with Dragon Storm because Dragon's off the bye.
Yeah, good.
Everyone had a little bit of time to cool off after that Souths game.
Mm-hmm.
What about their draw, by the way? All their home games to start the season. 0-2, though, to start the season. You've got to get things moving. Otherwise, bettering last year's performance for the St George Illawarra Dragons becomes a lot harder. Lachlan Ilias, a few eyes on him. Storm without Jerome Hughes.
I like it.
Storm have got a lot of injuries.
A lot of injuries, but a
of
typical
injuries.
Storm performance will come out of this. Are the Dragons going to be good enough to negate it?
I heard their injury report coming in today. Like it's massive. So, yeah. Look,
Pappenhausen in doubt.
Yeah, it's a big chance. I mean,
Clemmer's
Yeah.
first game.
your man, David Clemmer.
You going to be there on the hill?
No.
What number will we be wearing on your back, Jamie?
So it's meant to belt down in Sydney on Saturday,
Is it?
Arvo.
Okay.
So that
So
then
this
becomes
is truly
a,
2GB. We're getting weather reports as well. Can I get a traffic report for North Sydney later?
yeah. We'll go over to ComSec in a second to check how the S&P 500 is going.
I'm going to be positive.
Oh.
What?
I'm going to be positive.
To end it. Go.
The story is the Tigers Warriors. I think the Tigers win. They're 3 from 4. We're all aboard. I told you Tigers will make the 8. I picked it at the start of the year.
Claws out.
Claws out. Team Romy. Whatever you want. I'm all in. The Tigers is a story for me.
Yep. They'll become a story when they beat.
Yep.
No, when they beat a Penrith or a Storm or a Brisbane.
I'll tell you when they become a story. When I tell you, okay?
How
far is it?
Because they'll just give them credit. If they win, they're the story. I get a chance to answer. You just don't have the answers. Anyway, that's me. I'm done.
Okay, we're done. Danny, we're done
My
apparently.
birthday today.
Is that what?
Yeah.
I'm the
birthday
king.
to me.
Happy.
Happy birthday.
Wow.
Keep that quiet.
How old are you,
Well,
bro?
when you don't talk about that at my age.
56. Yeah?
56. 56.
Bro, I've got a knife for you. You got too long to go still. How long? When are you going to retire?
Were you born in 1969?
Yep.
19.
So,
we'll get it. You did maths at school.
I'm not retiring. I'm going to either get sacked or die.
You're going to be Cherry-Evans.
Yeah.
He's not going to play for 9 next year.
Oh, hang on. I hope I am. You do know something.
Yeah.
Channel 7, look out.
Thanks, gents. Happy
Thank
birthday,
you.
Danny.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll get your gig on Fox Sports. You can go good on 360. I'll ring Braith for you.
See you, everyone.
Bye.